everybody, it's Sierra, the Artsy Badger, and today we're just doing an old-fashioned sketch with me video. I decided to bust out my black paper because I feel like I haven't done that in a while. Taped it into my sketchbook with some washi tape. I decided to return to my roots and my guilty pleasures and draw a skull. I just flipped through and landed on a random page, which was this alligator snapping turtle. Although the poll from last week says that you guys prefer to see the entire process, I did cut out a lot of the sketching, mostly because it's hard to see the sketch on the black paper, so I figured it wasn't worth the few minutes that it would take up to watch me do it. So I think that most of the time that I do these skull paintings, I start off with a white color or a nearly white color. This time I decided to go in with that sort of yellow ochre brown color. I thought I had lightened it a lot more than I had, so this color was actually a lot darker than I had intended, but I made it work. It was pretty interesting painting with a medium that wasn't watercolor for the first time in a while. I felt like I kind of forgot how to paint. You'll see throughout this process that I'm almost sculpting the skull with paint. I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but I really didn't feel like I was painting the way that I would normally. I spent a lot of time adding colors and going back and forth between whether I wanted it to be a really sort of dry brush, sketchy kind of style, or if I wanted it to be a really creamy, well-mixed style. I ultimately ended up somewhere kind of in the middle, I think, but definitely slightly more to the creamy, well-blended side, I guess. I do really like the way the dry brushing looks, which you'll see a little bit later, but it just was hard to get the same effect consistently, I guess. So here I'm trying to bring out the light parts of the skull as best as I can. I was literally laying down plain white, and I was intentionally not waiting for my underpainting to dry because I didn't want it to be pure white. I wanted it to be a lighter version of the underpainting, but it was just eating up my white. I really don't think the lightening did much good, at least not in this first stage. Another thing I tried to do with this painting was not focus so much on the true colors in the image, but more give a feeling of the colors that are in the photograph. As I've talked about a lot on this channel, I've been really wanting to kind of play around with my color theory. It might be the best way to put it. And so I'm trying to play around with colors that communicate the same desire as the literal colors would, but bringing in more color. Wow, I feel like I don't even know what I'm saying at this point. So here's where I start to do some dry brushing stuff. And I think it looks cool, but I just struggled to keep it consistent, as I said before. So back to the color theory stuff. Although there definitely are all these warm tones in the actual photograph, nothing is quite as vibrant as I make it in this painting. And at first, it felt really uncomfortable to paint like this. I was like, this doesn't look right. Now I'm adding this weird burgundy color and it looks like the turtle murdered somebody. But I think using a color that isn't just like gray or black to shade really gives a lot more life to the piece. And it was around this point where I just kind of decided to give up feeling stressed about the painting and just have fun with it. And that's when I really embraced the sculpting aspect of it, I think. It was really just all about mixing colors over and over and over again until they laid in a way that made sense to my eye. It really became kind of therapeutic and made me want to start painting more. I used to paint all the time. My primary focus in college was classical painting with oils, and acrylics occasionally, but mostly oils. It was my passion. I just loved painting people and landscapes and skulls. And this week's video really kind of reminded me why I liked it so much. There's really something quite calming about just pushing paint around on your canvas, whether that be a piece of paper or an actual canvas. It's up to you. I think this dark purpley color is really when the skull starts to take on a life of its own, for lack of a better term. Since it's a skull, it's not really alive. But I think that it adds just so much more dimension to the piece and tone, and it's just such a yummy color. I love that color. I still don't totally understand gouache. I don't really get how it mixes or how it reactivates underneath each other. It did seem like I was reactivating my bottom layer a lot during this piece, but it was good because it makes the whole piece look cohesive and of the same color family, because everything is mixed together like a muddy mess. I think the shine on the sagittal crest, which is that back part of the head, is definitely my favorite part of this painting. In the photo, it's almost translucent, and I don't know that I really communicated that, but I just think that that part of the painting looks the best. It's at this point that I'm just kind of touching up some different areas, adding some more dark tones and a little bit duller of a tone here instead of that bright creamy yellow color, because the back of the skull is in shadow and it doesn't have any light touching it, so I felt like that sort of bright yellow was a little too jarring for the back of the skull. And I did the same thing to the jaw, just kind of trying to dull it down a little bit. It's at this point that I bring out my detail brush. In hindsight, I definitely should have used an even finer detail brush, which I do have one now, but I was nervous to use it because I don't want to mess it up. And I think the lines on the jaw look really good, but then I got a little too heavy-handed here, and I think the color was just really dark, and I started to panic, as usual, and added a lot more lines all over the place. Watching through the footage, it doesn't look as bad as it felt in the moment. I feel like I say stuff like that a lot as well, but in person, the lines are just really, really dark and really saturated. And what do you do when you're anxious about them? You just add a lot more. I don't know if that's the logical thing to do, but it felt right at the time. And as I continued to use the same dip, I never re-dipped my brush, the color got less saturated and more dull, and I really liked that. So then I started adding in more of that lighter tone, and I think that that's when I finally started to feel a little bit better about it, because it created a little bit of contrast between the two lines. I don't know, some is a little bit weathered, some is a little bit sharper. I don't know, I think it looks good. Now I'm just signing the scientific name of an alligator snapping turtle. I'm sorry if I spelt it wrong. I was trying really hard to not spell it wrong, but I am mildly dyslexic and can sometimes spell things wrong even when I'm looking straight at them. So that's it. That's the final product. It felt really good to kind of return to my roots and do something that I really enjoy. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.